We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk. I apologize that we haven't had one of these for a few weeks. Between Adepticon and scheduling and all that, just wasn't able to get to this. But now, we're getting back on track. So this is a show, of course, where you ask us questions and we answer them. It's my turn today. Next week will be Josh. And so if you want to leave him questions, leave those in the comments below, and he'll be sure to answer the ones that he wants to. Now, I'm just going to say first off, I've seen some questions in here about new Tyranid stuff. So I'm going to skip anything about the new Tyranids because we will be putting out a Tyranid battle report and first impressions this coming Saturday, assuming that this isn't going on the Saturday. So April 9th, I believe. Yeah, April 9th. So whatever that date happens to be. Not quite sure when this video is going out exactly. That's up to Josh. That's his job. Anyways, and so yeah, I'm just going to, anybody who asks about the Tyranids will just be like, yeah, just wait for my battle report / first impressions that will be coming out then. So I'm just going to jump right into it, start answering the questions that you guys left on the video, and just kind of go for about an hour or however long it takes to get through all the questions. So let's jump into it. Gorglax, hey Matthew, which of the other mini wargaming guys do you think you could beat in an in real life fight? I don't know. I think they would all probably be able to take me on. Definitely not Luca. Steve, I think, I don't think he would want to swing, even though he probably would just clobber me in one hit. He's more of a pacifist in that kind of area. So Josh, yeah, forget it, no. Dave, no. Maybe Brandon, but I don't know. He's got youth on me then, because I'm just turning into an old man, of course. So I don't know if I could take any of them, to be honest, in a real life fight. So yeah, I'll leave that at there. Miso, hey Matt, 4 questions this time, and all mainly writing based. Hope all is well. First, did you back the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter? Most successful Kickstarter project ever. Are you tempted to write a novel or short story anytime soon? I saw they did a Kickstarter, but I didn't back it. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe because eventually they'll get published and I'll just buy it then. I don't often back Kickstarters, especially if they're like a year or two out from what they're going to do. Not that I have anything against people doing that. I just find that by the time they actually come out, I've lost interest in whatever it happens to be. And if it's something that's going to be an ongoing product, then I'll just buy it when it comes out. Excuse me. Now, there are some exceptions. I'll go into a Kickstarter if there's like a beta, like where I can get earlier access or something. That might be something I'm interested in. Am I tempted to write a novel or short story anytime soon? I'd love to. Don't know if I have the time though. No, I know I don't have the time. Just wish that I had both the time and the discipline to do it. Brandon Sanderson is a very disciplined writer. He gets a lot written in a short amount of time. 2, have you read the new Gene Stealer Cults novel, Day of Ascension? It's by a fantastic non-Black library author called Adrian Tchaikovsky. Worth checking out. I will check that out. I have not read it. 3, would you consider writing up one of your homebrew adventures for 5th edition and trying to get it published on DM's Guild? It would be really cool to be able to play through one of your D&D adventures in a set rule system, i.e. not house rules. Well, the thing is, my homebrew campaign uses a lot of modules and things from other people's DM's Guild. So it's not technically homebrew, I guess. There's a lot of homebrew in it. Like, for example, they just turned level 19, by the way, out of 20. We're probably a few months away from being done, and it'll probably end up having been a 4-year-long campaign, playing every other week. We play the other weeks as well, but we play other modules. And it started off as Tomb of Annihilation. That's the module we did. And then I tied together a larger story, but I used like Ghosts of Saltmarsh next. I used something I bought called Stygian Library. I got it off of DM's Guild. And that was like it's not specifically 5th edition, but it's like a systemless one, but it's like a horror-themed library. So I threw that in the Shadowfell. And then we did something from Candlekeep Mysteries. And then I kind of ran out of modules to be able to run because we're at such high level. And so I've just been at this point, I'm now homebrewing. But for like 80% of the campaign, I was just using modules and then changing names and locations to suit the thing. So, and even if I was homebrewing the whole thing and it could be published as an adventure, that's a heck of a lot of work. It's different between homebrewing for your own group and then creating something that is usable by anybody. And so that's a lot of work for probably not a lot of money. And that would be a motivation, because if I'm going to put that many hours into it, because that would be hundreds of hours, I would hope to get some compensation for that, and I don't know how much you would. So I don't know. I don't think that would be a huge priority for me. And also, D&D on a weekly basis, I've always said this, I don't want it to turn into my job. I want it to be one of my hobbies that doesn't get put into a business like every other hobby I've ever done. So it's just nice to be able to do it when I don't have to be as worried about high quality of presentation and make sure I have maps and miniatures and all that kind of stuff. I can do that when I want to. Number 4, finally not on writing. On your game survey, was War Machine high on the list at all? There is a fantastic fan-made mod of the game called Brawl Machine, which is for much smaller games and is very popular. Might be more suitable for MiniWarGaming. It was, but at the same time, nothing really made it high because I made a mistake when I put that survey out. I kind of want to redo it. I let people choose as many as they wanted. So it's just like, which games would you like us to cover? Choose as many as you want. And I found that what that did was it kind of diluted the results. And so even the top result was like only 22% of the survey respondents, and then the next one down was like 21, and then 20.5 and 20. So the tail, it wasn't a big spike. So if I were to do that survey again, I'd probably put it out and be like, okay, you can only choose 2 for us to cover. And so all of a sudden people, because what you can do is you can go down the list and be like, yeah, sure, War Machine, I'd like to see that covered. Yeah, sure, this one I'd like to see covered. It's like, no, I want you to tell me the ones that you really want covered. So I would probably do it again and limit it to 2 or 3. So, and it was interesting because so War Machine was high on the list when I let the people choose as much as they wanted, but when I said you can only choose 1, then it wasn't anywhere to be found. And so, like Star Wars Legion went out in both of those, but once again, not by a huge amount because of the way the survey was structured. So I'd probably have to do that one again. Although we have based some of our decisions on what we're covering off of that, by the way, because we're getting into Star Wars Legion, and Lord of the Rings was pretty high up on that list. Necromunda was pretty high up on the list, so we're going to be tackling those as well. And also because we want to. GBC343, hi Matt, I hope that you and your family are well and content. Yeah, we're doing well. Question, which you may have been asked before, any opinions on the Wafsmer Plus and its content? Are you okay, I think that's just Warhammer Plus and its content, just your take. I don't really watch it, so I don't have much of an opinion on the quality of the content. From what I've seen, the quality seems good, but honestly, I've barely watched it, so I don't really have any opinions on it, so sorry. Also, a bit of a personal request, can we see the Beasts of Chaos in action following their update? Well, that's up to Steve, so we'll see. Thomas, 81, hey Matt, hope you're doing well and everything. Question, is there an Age of Sigmar coming up? If there is, what is it based on? Hopefully it's Nurgle. I meant AOS narrative campaign. Okay, I see that now. Yes, as soon as my wife gets her models painted, so if she's watching this, get your models painted, because we're doing a kind of her getting into Age of Sigmar campaign. So it starts off with like not the campaign itself, but her learning how to paint or assemble and paint and how to play, and then there will be a Path to Glory campaign, not just vanilla Path to Glory, but like a narrative campaign where I make story and everything for her. So she's doing Cities of Sigmar. I'm not sure yet who the villain's going to be. I'm thinking Gloomspite gets, like her Cities of Sigmar army that she's built is very low tier. So I have to be kind of cognizant of that as I choose what she's going to go up against. And she's also a new player too, so that is something as well to think about. So either like Gloomspite gets or some sort of chaos could be good as well. I haven't really put the thought into the story yet. We've got all the terrain made, and I'm just waiting for her to get her models painted, and then we can do that. So hopefully in the next couple months you'll see that. Also from Thomas, will there ever be an RPG campaign? Those are really fun to watch, and you're a really good GM. Well, thank you. I hope so. We have no plans right now, but I hope so. I like doing them. Matt, Tabe8 says, Matt, if Heresy 2.0 is real... Okay, so these questions are a little old because of how long ago this last sit and talk was, so 4 weeks ago. So Adepticon revealed that Horus 2.0 is real. So how will you go about covering it? What criteria would make it a potentially weekly thing? I only watch 30K content now. Well, we'll definitely cover the heck out of it when it first comes out. What criteria makes it a potentially weekly thing? That's tough because we're limited in our resources for what we can put out. So we have to be very careful what we choose. Like obviously Warhammer 40K and Age of Sigmar have always been like the foundation for what we put out. They both get good views and they get that return viewership. And then we have the other days of the week where we put out campaigns and other games that we feel like playing that we want to cover. So I don't know, I can't guarantee it'll be weekly. It'll probably be like regular at first, when it first comes out, and then we'll kind of gauge audience reaction. But even then, we have to be very careful because, like I said, we're limited in what we can do. So it's always a give and take between all of that. But I definitely want to cover it a lot, and I definitely want to play it. PS of all the models in the world, I want that Salamander's Praetor model you have with the custom Dragon Scale shield. It looks pretty cool. I know Lee made it, but I will pay big bucks if you're willing to sell. Sorry, Tabe, not getting it. Skaven Sniper, hope all is well with you and the family, Mr. Matthew. We are well, thank you. As I always say, your narrative games are amazing and really appreciate them. Any hints we can get on the newest one or ones you are working on? Cannot wait for the next one. Have a great day. Well, we're just about finished the Battlefleet Gothic one, where it mixes Battlefleet Gothic with 40k. It's an orc invasion, so there is a narrative to it. It's not as like deep narrative as some of my other narrative campaigns, but it'll probably be like 8 to 10 episodes in total of a big, enormous invasion of the orcs against the Imperium, with Space Wolves, Imperial Navy. And so that's Steve and Luca duking it out while I GM the whole thing. So that's almost done. So hopefully they'll start going out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe. And then the one I'm working on with my wife for Age of Sigmar. And then we're planning a 4-player Crusade campaign. That'll be story light, but it will be a campaign. I am currently in the works of the next Deathwatch campaign called Deathwatch Craft World. Got all the terrain coming this week, actually, and it's just a matter of figuring out when I'm going to start filming it, which might not be for another 2 or 3 months. We have the models being made for a Gene Stealer cult versus Chaos cult, not Chaos Space Marines, Chaos cult. So like just, regular guys and beastmen and all that kind of stuff. That kind of cult. So basically mirrors the Gene Stealer cult, except it's Chaos instead of Gene Stealers, obviously. So we have the models being made. So that's like when we're in that kind of stage, it could still be like half a year out because it takes time and to get the manpower together. Depends on how many guests we get here as well to help us get ahead on our regular stuff as well, so that we have more time then to break off and do that other content. Also depends on what else is coming out. Like Necromunda Ash Waste has been pushed a lot, so whenever that comes out, I'm going to want to do a campaign for that too because it looks awesome and I really want to do it. So that's kind of what's going on in the old noggin right now, and things that are actually physically being worked on. So I can confirm Deathwatch Craft Worlds is a thing sometime this year. I can confirm the one with Holly for the Age of Sigmar, Path to Glory, is confirmed once she gets the models painted. I can confirm that we're finishing up the Battlefleet Gothic one. I can confirm we have models being made for the Chaos Cult versus Gene Stealer Cult one. And definitely want to do Necromunda Ash Waste when it comes out, whenever that happens to be. So then that might be it for the year, to be honest. Like we're already at April. So the 5 campaigns over the next 9 months, plus the Crusade that I talked about, that's 6 campaigns. That's easily 9 months worth of stuff with how long it takes to get filmed and how long it goes out for. Byzantine, hey Matt, I hope you're doing well. Got 2 questions for you. The first one is, who painted the studio Ultramarine army? I don't know, for 2 reasons. One, I think we just purchased the army. And second, we've had literally over 1,000 painters paint stuff for us. So it's hard for me to keep track of who has done what. I love the paint job and it's really made me start painting my own Ultras. Oh, good. Second question, how do you feel about Horus Heresy? I've been wanting to get back into it anyways, and so the new edition being announced is a perfect excuse to do that. So I look forward to covering it. I also just kind of want to break from 9th edition 40k. Not that it's not good, especially that I'm getting my new Tyranids and stuff. That'll be fun. But it's just nice to go back to an old school system that, lower model count, one wound Marines everywhere, not a million stratagems to remember, all that kind of stuff. I look and very no command point rerolls, like that kind of stuff. It's just like I look forward to it. I look forward to seeing what they do with it too. So from what they've shown so far, it should be interesting. Let's just put it that way. I just want to know if you would be ever down to play it again. Yes, from a friendly neighborhood Ultramarines player, courage and honor. Melon21, hi Matthew, hope all is well. If it was This Is Not a Test that got me to the vault a couple years back, and I was really hoping a new campaign would come, but I never expected to. Thanks a lot for that. Could you please tell us if there is a MiniWarGaming Vault app in the works? If so, are there any timelines you could share? Keep up the good work. Not right now. We kind of dabbled with it before, but it's just not something that we can maintain right now. There's a lot of things that we're putting money into right now. And so an app is just a little bit on the back burner. So maybe next year we can look more into that. Riders Gags. Matthias Calgar, first of his name, and Termagant Tamer, is the Bunkers gaming store open? Yeah, totally. Did Max make it through those past 2 years? Yeah, so far so good. I really want to visit you guys at the bunker and also stay in the cool themed rooms. I hope that's still happening as well. What about the escape room though? Escape rooms aren't going to be happening anytime soon, if at all. But yeah, no, we're open. We're welcoming guests. If you want to come in and be in battle reports, you can go to miniwargaming.com/challenge. If you just want to come and hang out in the bunker, like bring some friends, well, that's often, we've been seeing that a lot actually, is that people will come like in a group of 4 or 8, they'll rent out a few of the rooms, they'll stay over the weekend, and they'll just play in the gaming hall with their friends and have a great time. Stay up late playing games, so you can, if you want to do that, then it's all open right now. It has been for a while actually, but a lot of the restrictions for coming to Canada have been lifted. There's still some remaining, but you have to look into that. I can't tell you them all right here because I don't know them all. Because I know like some of them eased up on April 1st, but I can't remember exactly what. Like the mask mandate is gone for Ontario, so you don't have to wear a mask while you're here. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's all open. So go check it out. miniwargaming.com/challenge if you're interested in coming for a battle report. Otherwise, you can go to just mwgbunker.com, and that's our very bare bones website where you can like book the rooms and check out the pricing and all of that. Big Thunder D, no new Battletome battle reports or reviews. Make the sustain for AOS more apparent. The sustain? The disdain, you mean? Oh, we love Age of Sigmar, but it's just there's too much coming out. It's too fast. And we as much as we didn't put out the Battletome reviews, we have covered the new Battletome. So there's the new Fire Slayers. We had an Iden Death Deepkin one. Oh, this is 4 weeks ago. Right, okay, so since then, yes, we have put out some of the new ones. No, there's no disdain here for AOS. It's just a lack of ability to keep up with everything that Games Workshop puts out. And obviously, no, it's not even obviously, it's because the 40K stuff is more important. I wouldn't even say that. It's just, honestly, it's just timing. There was 1 week where we all of a sudden got the Fire Slayers and Iden Deepkin Battletome, and it came like 2 days before it was supposed to go out, and we were already booked solid for the next 2 weeks. And so it was just like, we just can't cover this. It just wasn't possible. So no, there's no disdain for AOS. I love the game, and I enjoy playing it. Zach112, hey Matthew, love the content you guys make. Would you consider having a poll for Vault members to choose one or both of the armies that play in an upcoming AOS or 40K battle report? No, because of how many we put out, which is not that many. If we were putting out 4 a week instead of 2, maybe, but there's always like when a guest comes in, obviously they're going to play what they want to play, and then we've got to kind of play to that. And so if you're like, oh, we want Tau versus Tyranids, it's like, okay, that's fine, but the person I'm playing against is playing Imperial Guard. So I can't guarantee that the next one will be that. It wouldn't hurt to have polls to see what you guys want, and then we can try to accommodate that. But it's hard to be like, yeah, we'll play that next time. And we don't have the manpower to be like, we'll make an extra day that's just for making AOS and 40K battle reports based on what the Vault members vote for. It's a cool idea, though. I wish we could do it, but with the mania that is release schedules of new stuff coming out all the time, it would be really hard to make that happen properly. S. Janks, Matthew, when do you think the Battlefleet Gothic 40K crossover? Okay, I already talked about that. Looking forward to it. What I'd love to see is a Battlefleet Gothic and 6mm epic crossover. I think the scope of fighting would match better than 40K. Well, of course, 40K does not match the scale of the game that you're playing in 40K at all. Like, if 40K scale is more correct for the size of table and the size of models, there wouldn't be aircraft on the table. There wouldn't be Titans on the table, even Imperial Knights. Like, none of those would be there. Even, like, there'd only be a few tanks. Like, it would be mostly infantry. But the game, it tries to, and if you really think about the size of a Rhino would be, the size of these vehicles would be, they'd be much bigger. And so because it's a game and you have to make it work, like in the lore, Space Marines could be just a handful of them, like a dozen of them, and they can take out hundreds or even thousands of enemies in the right circumstances. On the table, that wouldn't make any sense and it wouldn't be any fun. And so that's reserved for the Custodies. And so, yeah, you have to consider the scale is a little different. But yeah, I agree. The Epic in 6mm would be even more awesome for covering that. But even that doesn't quite cover the scale that these battles would be. Like, you're talking millions and millions of soldiers. Maybe not if you're playing Space Marines, obviously. But like Imperial Guard, they're marching millions and millions of soldiers into these battles all the time. So it's so hard to do that. Okay. Sim the Sam 88. Hello, Matt. You seem like a really chill and relaxed guy. Well, thank you. I try to be. So if you don't mind me asking, what's the maddest you have ever gotten at MiniWargaming? Blood Bowl not included. Was it at a game, a person, or just one of those days? Oh, I've gotten plenty mad. Heck, I just played a game last week that I won't spoil against Josh, poor Josh. And I was just like, this is so dumb. This is so dumb. And I just wasn't very happy to be there. Because that happens. It can be a combination of days. or the army that you're playing or playing against, or just the dice. Yeah, Blood Bowl obviously has made me the maddest. If I remove Blood Bowl from the equation, it happens. It definitely happens. Other employees will attest to it that, the camera turns off and there may be words said, not like aggressively at them, but more just like me just trying to release some steam on some stupid thing that happened or whatever. And be like, it's just a game, it's just a game. Remember, it's just a game, it's just a game. So while I try to be kind of chill and relaxed, yeah, I get definitely riled up in competitive kind of stuff. And I don't mean competitive like playing tournament competitive. I mean like just trying to win a game. So yeah, everybody here can attest to that. Bruce goes, that's a question about the Tyranids, so I'll talk later. Squid17, Matthew, leader of the Hive Mind, what do you think? Oh, no, you're talking about the new Tyranids. Demon Arrows, here's an interesting, oh, you know what, actually? Okay, hi Matthew, hope all is well. Potentially tricky question, so feel free to ignore. Would you ever sign a GW NDA? It's a tricky question to answer. I'm not going to talk much about this, but we already have, like years ago. So the reason I can't really talk about it is because, well, it's an NDA, so. And I know there was all that controversy. I'll talk about that for a second. I know there's been all this this is a little old news now. I know there's all that controversy about the leaked NDAs and everybody kind of going bananas and squirrely on over that, and how if you sign it, then you have to be nothing but positive about it. And I'm like, that's whatever. Everybody loves to hate the big company. And if you can call us shills or GW fanboys all you like, I don't know. I've bashed plenty of things about them in the past. I am not afraid to say what I think, what I like and don't like. But overall, we like the games. We like 40K and Age of Sigmar. We love Blood Bowl and Lord of the Rings and Battlefleet Gothic, all the stuff that they've come out with. Like, they are iconic to the industry. And remember, Games Workshop doesn't exist. It's an abstract concept, and it's thousands of people from CEO down to the person packing the boxes. And so like when we say Games Workshop is evil or Games Workshop does this, the corporate policies at Games Workshop, it's like they're constantly changing everything. It's so nonsense to just get mad at these entities. Now, there are certain policies, of course, that can kind of tick people off. Like I'm not, and there's so many things that I can be critical about Games Workshop. I think that they release stuff too quickly. I hate codex creep. It's been a problem forever. It feels particularly bad right now, but honestly, it's not particularly bad right now. This has been a problem forever. It's just that it escalates so quickly. Like, I feel bad for people who have spent time creating a cool army just to have 4 codexes come out that all just destroy you no matter how well you play. Like, there's crazy balance problems with 40K and Age of Sigmar. And no matter, and I don't, yeah, that's what I think right there. So that's why I love the narrative side of things, because all that kind of goes away. It just melts away. Play a Crusade campaign, play the Path to Glory. Make sure that when you're playing just one-off games that you're not going for, unless you want to, like if you want to just practice for a tournament, that's fine. But overall, just try not to be a jerk. And in the end, remember that. In the moment a company gets big in the eyes of people, you're going to get, it draws out those criticisms because people all of a sudden just feel like they can. Heck, same thing happens to us. And we're not even big. We're just a handful of people. But because we're one of the bigger channels and we have a larger budget, then all of a sudden, we see the comments where it's just kind of hilarious, the perceptions that people have of how we should be able to operate. And all these different things, and we laugh at it because we're like, whatever, it's the internet. And so I'm just gonna say, like, this it's so funny to watch people. That it's so easy. Like, I think it's more to be more of a shill, just to hate on big companies, just to get views, and so it's just too easy. If I wanted to get a lot of views on a video, I could just put I hate Games Workshop. Here's why, and boom. Or heck, I can just pick something. Who's a popular YouTuber right now? And if I just put, I hate, fill in the blank, here's why, and I put a thumbnail of me going, and then their little face right there, I can guarantee that'll get a lot of views because it's just easy. It's the lowest common denominator. To be negative about things, it's just too easy. And so while I am not afraid to give my opinion on things that I don't like, and I'll tell you all sorts of them, to then just do I like this hobby or not? Yeah, okay. So we can get passionate about it. Let's get passionate about it. That's fine. But to then just turn it into some of those ridiculous things that I've seen. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to say that without pointing out anybody in particular, because I understand that there are some concerns when people read it, but most people reading it are not lawyers. They don't understand law, and they don't understand what they're talking about, or the implications of it, really, is what it comes down to. All I can say is that, we can say what we want, and we're fine. Smiling Kira. Hi, Matthew. Hope you are having a wonderful day. 1. In Warhammer 40k, which faction do you view as the main threat to humanity? Is it the Tyranids or Orcs or Necrons or Chaos or even the Imperium itself? Well, they all have their different kinds of threats to humanity, right? Like if you're looking at ultimate threat, and without retconning anything in the past or really knowing exactly everything about them, then Tyranids would be the ultimate threat. And the reason for that is because apparently, if you've dig through enough of their lore, they've already consumed many other galaxies. And so the amount of Tyranids that are already in the galaxy is apparently a small percentage of the entire Tyranid organism. And so that's just, you don't stand a chance. Orcs, they've proven that even at their biggest, which I think was like, was it 3,400? It's the Beast Arises novel series that I read. That was like the biggest they got. Like they have their own problem that once they get big, they kind of crumble on themselves. I know that's basically how all empires work. Like, heck, it's happening to the Imperium right now. Necrons, the problem is ever since the Silent King kind of severed their imperatives, they all kind of infight. So that's the same thing. They're just basically skeleton human or metal humans. Forget their technology. Their technology individually is better, but obviously other problems. Chaos is an interesting one as the ultimate threat. They are both the ultimate threat and not the ultimate threat, because chaos solves its own problem. If chaos wins, chaos loses. And that's just what it comes down to. Because it's a reflection, if we take it at face value for what it is, the Immaterium is a reflection of the psychically attuned sentient creatures. Like Slaanesh didn't exist until the Eldar as a race basically rose up to prominence, and through all of their excess living birthed the goddess Slaanesh. But when they did that, it killed most of the Eldar. And then Slaanesh basically went to sleep. And so it kind of solved itself. It was like, what's the biggest threat to the Eldar back then? Well, it was themselves, because there's this mirror of the Immaterium, and the moment that they get out of hand, it's almost like nature's own pruning device. The Immaterium is there just to make sure nobody gets too big. The Imperium gets big enough, then the reflection of chaos gets bigger and stronger. And so it's kind of like this check and balance. It's like, oh, the chaos is the biggest threat to the Imperium. It's like, it's only because the Imperium got this big too. So if chaos ever came in and won and destroyed a ton of the Imperium and then took it over, then they would lose their power as well, because there would be less things to feed off of. And so you need, it kind of needs on it. Then chaos would have to fight itself in order to keep things going. And eventually that would lead to their own demise, kind of like you look at Slaanesh and Age of Sigmar and how that went down. And so I think it's just one of those, it'll always be, Imperium gets big, which then brings up chaos, which then brings down the Imperium, which brings down chaos, which brings up the Imperium. So that one, it's hard to say that chaos is the biggest threat to the Imperium, or the Imperium itself, because once again, how does humanity the biggest threat to humanity? Because we get in a war with each other and nuke each other? Sure. But now the Imperium is spread across millions of worlds, and so it's impossible for them just to nuke each other out of existence. There's always going to be somebody that survives, and given another 1,000,000 years, they'll rise back up and be there again. So humanity as a whole will always go forward. So that's why I say Tyranids, because they're the only ones that can wholesale come in and literally strip the galaxy of all of its life, and then leave it dead. Apparently, that's what we assume they do after they leave the galaxy. I always like to picture there's a second wave of Tyranids that comes and actually consumes the stars and the planets, and then gets rid of all it just consumes every black hole and star, because that's where the real energy is, right? Because it just feels like it's scientifically not very energy efficient how the Tyranids work. But put that aside, because it's more of a fantasy than a science fiction kind of environment. You come in and you strip off a world of all of its stuff, and they're as has been shown in many novels, they're surface feeders, so they don't even go that deep. So there's still plenty of minerals and stuff left in the planet. And you still have the star of the system, which is orders of magnitude has way more energy than that planet ever does, because that planet got all its energy from that star over millions of years. If you think about it, every bit of energy on a planet pretty much comes from, maybe not that star, but from other stars too. As you think of nuclear, well, that comes from an exploding star from before, creating heavier materials up to uranium, and those then get formed into worlds, and we can find those. But even that was a star exploding. And so putting like nuclear aside, and like unlocking carbon and all that kind of stuff. You look at all the stuff that we have, it's all powered by the sun, and so you have plants which photosynthesize the energy from the stars, or for our sun in particular, and they use that energy to then pull material out of the air and out of the ground, and it creates themselves, which then get eaten by animals, who break down that energy that came from that, and then we eat those animals and we eat the plants and we break down that energy and we build things and we burn things, and we can burn things. We can burn oil because there was animals that ate the plants and basically became just big batteries, and when they decompose they create the oil and all that kind of stuff. And so we're just once again burning the star fuel, but it's like the most inefficient use of it. Even if we covered the entire planet in solar panels and gathered all the energy from the star coming to Earth, it would still be a tiny percentage of the energy being emitted by the star. So you need the Dyson sphere or Dyson swarm. So I picture like a second race of Tyranids. That's like the follow-up that you never see, of course, because they only get there if the other one's won. And they would create the Dyson swarms around the stars and just sit there for the next millions of years, unless they have like a way to actually speed up the burning of the star as well and collect its material, which would be pretty cool too, if you kind of come up with that kind of method. And then they carry on, and that's actually what then powers the next invasion, because they got to get across the void to the next galaxy, which requires immense amounts of energy. So yeah, Tyranids for sure, as they are currently written. If we find out that this is, they're running out, that the 90% of the Tyranids have already arrived in the galaxy, well then no, they're not the biggest threat, because they'll just be like the orcs then, where you'll never quite be able to get rid of them, but they'll never rise up enough. But if it's like what we think, where it's just like only the tip of this huge organism, and I call it an organism because that's what I kind of picture the Tyranids as. The hive fleets are just, it's different fingers. It's still part of the same hand, which is part of the same heart of the same body. All driven by an unfathomably alien will, and not just unfathomable because it just has different desires than us, but because it's essentially the brain the size of a galaxy, as opposed to it's like comparing our brains to that of insect brains, but even then it's still in the orders of magnitude infinitely larger than ours. So it's not just smarter, it just doesn't perceive reality the same way, and so that's why interacting with it is really hard or impossible. I love Tyranids, by the way, if you can't tell. Spicy Peef. Hi Matthew, in the post-game to your recent Tyranid Crusher matchup against Josh's Mirrorlights, you mentioned how insanely complicated GSC are now, so Genius of the Cult, as well as how complex 40k is today in general. I personally find 9th edition to be unnecessarily overcomplicated and heavily skewed towards the hardcore competitive scene, with most of GW's focus clearly on writing and legislating the game for GT play. If I'm honest with myself, I don't particularly like 9th and miss the simpler, more fun-focused days of 8th edition. I'm not suggesting you feel the same. I have no idea, but can I ask you what you think of this viewpoint? No, I agree. I agree with you. I don't, except for one point. I don't miss 8th. I don't think 8th was better than 9th. I think 9th is infinitely better than 8th because it basically it does it better. I think 9th is really well written, but you've said it right there. It's more that it's unnecessarily overcomplicated. I look at 80% of the stratagems and think those should just be abilities. Like why is smoke screen? Like why is popping smoke a stratagem? It can just be a once per game. When you fire at this vehicle, if it has smoke launchers, it can pop smoke. And it's not even instead of shooting, because then you never use it on Lehman Russes and on important vehicles. Like, why does it have to be a stratagem? When I have 4 rhinos, why can only one of them pop smoke in the shooting phase? It doesn't make sense. And so there's so many of those kind of things. And it's not even the ones that don't make sense. It's more just like, I saw an 8th edition came out, and they moved abilities to stratagems. It's like, why? Like if you had triple predator before, you got this thing. Now it's if you have triple predator and you spend command points, you get this thing. It's unnecessary. Like you said, it doesn't work. It's like they had an existing game and they wanted to add command points to it. And so I like the way Age of Sigmar does it infinitely better. First off, how you get the command points, and second off, how many different ways you can spend it, which is pretty limited. And there's no command point reroll, which I think is great. You can reroll charges. You can make runs at automatic 6. You can get +1 to hit or +1 to save. You can redeploy. You still have insane bravery, which I think is dumb. They should get rid of that, or make it like the one from games or from 40K where it's once per game. But yeah, I think Age of Sigmar is way better in that sense. It's not 40K though, so it's not like I don't get to play Tyranids in Age of Sigmar. So it's the models that draw me back to the other one. And the Crusade, I think I like Crusade more than Path to Glory, but I like aspects of both of them, which is why I modify them when I play narrative campaigns. So yeah, I think that's why people here really like playing Horus Heresy, going back to 7th edition, even though I remember being sick of 7th edition by the end. That's just it. I like change, but 9th edition just seems, it's too much. And so, like I said, when I play narrative stuff, all that goes away. You want to have a lot of fun, you make a rule where you don't play with command points, and you can do every stratagem once. That is a lot of fun. Because then all of a sudden you use stratagems that you never used before, because they're not worth your command points. And you can't just rely on it, every turn I'm a Slanesh Havoc, so I'll double shoot, or I'm a Slanesh Obliterator, so every turn I'll double shoot. It's like, great, cool. Like, why is that a stratagem? Like, why is that tactics? So they've been getting rid of stuff like that, and they'll hone it. And maybe 10th edition, whenever that'll be, we'll kind of find that happy balance. It always seems to take a few editions to get it right. So I agree, totally agree. Doesn't mean I don't have fun playing it. Like, that's a good example, see? Just said all sorts of crap about 40K 9th edition. So there we go. Smiling Kira, hi Matthew, hoping you're having a wonderful day. 1, does MiniWarGaming have any plan to cover Kill Team in the near future? Not right now, no. 2, it seems that Games Workshop is heading towards specialized groups for new Kill Team design. Okay. I'm trying to get this whole question in my head. We got a new kit for our Commandos, other Corsair, Veteran Guard, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I see, okay. So for Tyranids, how do you think Games Workshop is going to tackle this? And how do you want Games Workshop to tackle this? What kind of kit? I don't know, that's a good question, if they ever would. Because I wouldn't be surprised if, like, those sister novitiates, they become their own box eventually. It was just their way of kind of releasing them. So I don't have any particular desires for Tyranids to be in there. Maybe Gene Stealer Calls would be interesting, because they have a little more potential of variety of making them interesting. Kieran Keldorf, dear Matt, I want to start a Horus Heresy Imperial Fist Legion, but I despise Rogel Torn with a burning passion. What do I do? Please advise. Love from Sweden. Well, you can play it without Rogel Dorn, or you can just bring him and have it be like that ironic thing where you play him even though you hate him. How's Am3? Hey Matthew, love the company you built and the people in it. Well, thank you. Keep up the awesome work, and please keep Scary on board. Hey, he's doing great. We love him here. I know you guys said something like he has an independent contract or something. Yeah, it's just how things work on paper. Because any employee could be, if they really wanted to, also do their own thing. It's because he has his own channel too, right? And he just can choose, do you want to be an employee or do you want to be an independent contractor? It doesn't matter. It works the same in the end. He's awesome, so as a peasant that views your stuff, please renew his contract. I know Phil is trying to do something similar with a few things he said a while ago. Yeah, we're struggling with border problems, getting him across the border. Not because of him, but because of immigration rules and stuff. Not immigration, but like working across the border. It's stupid and complicated. Some of the stuff needs to be there, of course, I get that, but overall, it's been a pain. One day, I and my group will visit the bunker to roll some dice. Also, I know that you are busy with all the narrative stuff, but can someone else drive the Gene Stealer Cult army if you are busy with narrative for some... Steve has mentioned desire to play them, and I'll keep telling him, just play them, man. Play them. Sika, hey Matthew, what's the office's reaction been to the squats announcement? I haven't really talked to anybody about it, because that was over the weekend, and I'm filming this on a Monday, and only other person really here is Josh, and he's filming a battle report right now with a guest. So we haven't really talked about it. I think it's interesting. It's another faction for Warhammer 40K. Whatever. It's cool looking models, so keep bringing out new stuff. I hope they find a way to make them unique. Okay. That was all the questions on our website. So I'm going to keep flipping around here. Oop, that's Luca talking. Oh, we got a few on YouTube. And then I got a few over on YouTube community as well. Sebastian, hope you and your family are well. Thank you. How come Dave and Steve aren't in the sit and talk rotation with you, Luca, and Josh? Well, Dave, because he had his Shrine of Chaos, and he kind of does this, he's not part of the normal rotation for a lot of things, if you noticed, because he's got his own special projects. And Steve, I think he just wasn't enjoying doing them as much, and so he just wanted to focus his time elsewhere, which is fine. Gesticles. Great name. I'd love to see you guys play through the Lord of the Rings campaigns. Yeah, I was looking at that. Luca was showing me the other day. That looks really cool. So maybe. Roy Mayer. Hey, Matt, love the baby stream. What do you think of the next major faction of Age of Sigmar will be? I want Serta back in any way possible. Serta. Cetra? Oh, Cetra, like from Team King. Oh, yeah, good luck with that. And what about the promised Blood Bowl League? I don't know when that's going to happen. Nobody wants to play with me. Anybody wondering what the baby stream was? I was doing some tests when I was setting up with my wife for Age of Sigmar stuff, and our baby was sitting there in a bumbo, and so we just had the camera. I'm like, oh, I'll turn it on. It was interesting, the reactions. Some people were like, I didn't subscribe for this. And it's just like, come on, man. Really? That's what you're going to be butthurt about today? Overall, it's good, though. Next major faction for Age of Sigmar. I don't know. Next major faction for Age of Sigmar. Well, what else is there to do of what we know, right? Like, I can tell you what I'd love. Here's what I love. Besides, like, redoing Cities of Sigmar, making them even better. Love to see the Bretonnians come back, but, as, like, having been modified and really cool. Like riding Pegasi and all that kind of cool stuff. But still like a knight-based army, but just like not just the basic fantasy knights, but because there's hints in the lore that they were protected by the lady, I think, during the end times. So that'd be really cool. Other than that, I can't think of any. Like, is there another elf faction that's still to come out? We got the pointy elves, we got the sea elves, we've got the dark elves, we kind of have wood elves. I know it's more the Sylvaneth. So, and we've got the old. I know there's all the old ones. I'm talking about like newer factions. And Sylvaneth technically aren't super new. They were part of the old one too, kind of. Dwarves. We've got the steampunk dwarves. We got the We Live in Under the Mountains dwarves. Human-wise, I just said Bretonnia. Undead. Obviously, that's been covered in like almost every angle possible. Chaos, we've got all that stuff kind of happening. It'd be cool to see Skaven get an update, like majorly. And then we got Destruction, so we got Orcs, we got the new Cruel Boys, you got the old Grots. Those got kind of mixed in a little bit. There's some Hobgrots with the Cruel Boys, but then, there's all the Gloomstight stuff still there. You got the Ogres, you got Kragnos, you got Giants. Yeah, I don't know what else I would do if I were them. Yeah. So, yeah, that's all I can come up with. Tungdale, hey Matt, since you guys are going to do more Middle Earth in the future, are you interested in doing a little rules tutorial video for it similar to the others you did before? I've been thinking about that a lot, off and on, over the past like 6 months to a year, of doing like how to plays for all the other systems as well. And it's just been a matter of finding the time to do it. But it's on my mind to kind of be the channel that people can go to learn all sorts of different games. So, but it's tough. Our schedule is pretty busy. It's pretty hectic. So it's hard to find times for projects like that. And then somebody asked me about the NIDS Codex. Okay, so I'll skip that one. All right. Let's jump over to our YouTube community. There's a bunch of questions in there. I'll answer those, and that might be it. Let's order these, though. Sort by newest first, and then I'll scroll down to the bottom. There we are. Dodger Dude, will you guys be getting a squats army? Of course we will. I know there's been barely anything shown so far, but as a concept, I suppose. Of course, yeah, of course we will. Of course we'll have a squats army. If nobody wants it, well, the studio will get one. Shadow of Hawk, what are your thoughts on the likes of Daughters of Cain, whatever Malekith's faction is called, and the Ideneth breaking off from Order and becoming their own Grand Alliance with new factions like Van Helsing, Rip-Off Humans, and maybe even not Chaos Skaven? I think the days of the Grand Alliances are done. I don't think you need to break them off. I think you just need to dissolve the Grand Alliances. So far, the only place that I can see that they're still used is Kragnos gives destruction stuff. But that can easily be written to say Orc, Workland, /Gloomspite Git, /Ogre Motrebs, whatever. Grand Alliances don't make any sense anymore. They never really did, right? I've had that complaint so many times. How are these guys Order? It's because they don't like chaos. But neither does destruction or death. Like death is an easy one, right? Because, they're all undead. But say, like, I think there should be a city in the Cities of Sigmar that's a death one that can be mixed with skeletons. Because there's a book that I read, a novel. I think it was called Nagash the Undying King, but it was when he hadn't risen back to power. And there is this human city that lived amongst like graves and mausoleums and stuff. And when they needed help defending their city, they would raise their dead, and it would be their ancestors coming back to life, not just animated skeletons and zombies, but actually like their ancestors' spirits would inhabit those bodies and fight alongside them. Isn't that freaking cool? But no, you can't do that because they're different Grand Alliances. It's like, no, they're dead people. Like they're just the people, but dead. And so this whole order versus chaos thing, like I get where it spawned from, and they don't really push the Grand Alliances anymore. And so I think we just need to stop thinking about them that way too. It's like, get rid of that. No Grand Alliances. Because, things will fight amongst themselves. Dwarves will fight dwarves, humans will fight humans, elves will fight elves. Sometimes you'll actually get destruction guys to back you up. You feed the ogres enough food and they'll fight for you. Like you could probably parlay with Skaven if you find enough warp stone. And I'm sure they'll be underhanded and probably try to betray you, but in the end, you can get them to work for you for a while. Much better than, Daughters of Cain will work for you and then do all their nasty stuff from hiding. So anyways. So forget about Grand Alliance, just come up with cool stuff is what I say. Just make it work. Just get it in there. Matthew Thompson, hey Matt, what do you think about Planetstrike games where there's an attacker and defender? I think Planetstrike is super cool. In fact, we're about to film some and get it out with the BFG campaign that we're doing. So yes, I agree they make great narrative games. I like things that restrict your forces and force you to play a different way. Albin, why is Games Workshop so bad at rules for new books? Power creep is so hard right now. We are almost on level from 7th edition. How you can fix it? Any idea, Matthew? Any tips for Games Workshop rules writers? I don't know, man. Like I said, this has been a problem forever. Ever since I've played since 4th edition, and it's always been codex creep. The only difference right now, it feels like it happens faster. Like we're 1.5 years into 9th edition, and I'm at that point where I felt like in 7th edition, like was it 3 years or 4 years in before they switched? And so like it feels like it needs a reset because of how ridiculous the power creep has gotten. And it's just like I've already covered this, so I'll just kind of leave it at that. What my advice for games what do I know? Like I've just experienced the game. I haven't written the rules, so it's not like I'm some sort of expert in this area. I just enjoy it. All I can say is what I enjoy. Like I play Dungeons and Dragons, and I've been really enjoying 5th edition, and I'm so happy that they haven't rushed out 6th edition, that they've just been coming out with more stuff for 5th edition. It makes me much more satisfied because I don't want a 6th edition to come out and all of a sudden all my old books be basically not as useful. I know that you can always port them over, but that's more work, and I don't want all that work because I buy the module so I have less work because there's already enough time to prep for my sessions. Even when I use modules, I still will prep a couple of hours for a session, and so I don't know what the answer is, but the funny thing though is I kind of had this epiphany at Adepticon when I was talking to somebody. I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's not so bad that Games Workshop operates the way that they do. And when I say not so bad, I don't mean on an individual level, but I mean like for the market as a whole. Like they've definitely made 40K and Age of Sigmar more mainstream. I don't mean mainstream in the sense that now everybody wants to play it, like how role-playing games have become more mainstream. Those ones are a lot easier to get into, and so it's no matter how well war games are received, like if there's no stigma, you still have to spend a lot of money and a lot of time, and so you got to choose your hobbies very carefully because of that. And so, but I have noticed that the rules have become more. I'll use the word generic, but not in a bad way, but more like how computer games, when they get like as they've aged, people will complain that they hold the hand of the player too much, or like Fallout's a great example of that. I remember Fallout 2 and I loved the conversation system. And then you got Fallout 4, which is like, will you do this thing? It's like yes, sarcastic yes, no, and I can just talk to you again and you'll say yes, or a skill challenge to get paid a little bit more money. Which is just hilarious. Whereas Fallout 2, it was like almost a little too brutal if you didn't talk just the right thing. You could miss out on entire quests. And I remember Fallout 3 came out and it's like, oh, you're not able to pass a speech check to get this guy to give you the information. So he gives you a mission instead to go and do, which was fine because it was like a main quest thing. But it's like, no. There should be certain things I just can't do. I remember replaying Fallout 2. As my first playthrough was your typical like soldier character, and the second I'm like, well, I want to do a charisma one, and I discovered like tons of quests which I never got because people didn't trust me because my charisma wasn't high enough. And I thought that's super neat for replayability. I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but the point is that there's kind of this mainstreamness to the way that computer games go, but it also gets a lot more people playing them. And then of course there's like what's made a resurgence is like you get like the Souls-like games, right? The things that are brutal and hard. And then that kind of creates its own thing as well. But it's a weird meta that the market goes through. I feel like miniature wargaming and role-playing has gone through a similar kind of thing. It just takes a little longer because of, it's physical and not digital medium. And so like 40K and AOS feels like that. It feels like they've lost a lot of the flavor of their games, if that makes sense. Like a blast template is a good example. When I put a blast template down, it feels like I'm shooting a gun and it is exploding in this area, right? Whereas if I roll D6 for how many shots I get and then I roll my attacks, it doesn't feel like I just shot a gun in there. But you can argue that the templates created way too many problems. People would cheat, people wouldn't, or just like disagree. Oh, I got 6 models, no, you only got 5. It's like, no, it's clearly 6. And it's like, or you watch the scatter die and then they just kind of go off in a almost perfectly perpendicular direction to where the scatter die is pointing. And yet I still would rather have the blast template. Is it because I'm an older gamer? I can say that I'm 40 now, so look at that, I'm older. And it's just nostalgia for me, and that's the way I had it. And people that are playing 9th edition for their first edition would never want to play with blast templates. That could be it. That could be all there is here. I will admit that. But I think it's also that it's like, no, let's remove the things that are a little janky, but had flavor, and replace them with things that are, crisp. Like rolling that D6. If I roll a 4, I got 4. There's no arguments here. I got 4. There's nothing you can do to argue unless I'm somehow picking up my dice too fast or or it's a cocked die or something like that. And so like you can argue it's better, but I'm just like, no, I like putting the flavor template down and whoosh, look at all of that. And then people will be like, yeah, but then you have to be more careful where you put your models, so it takes longer to move your models around because you don't want to pack them up. It's like, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Like it's objectively better that we don't use a template and that we roll a die for all of those reasons. And yet there's part of me that's like, but I missed that at the same time. I missed vehicles ramming into vehicles rather than charging a vehicle. And all of a sudden, I can't do anything now because I've been, there's another vehicle right next to me. Because that's what happens with tanks, right? It's like if there's another tank next to it, it's like, I guess I can't shoot my big gun anymore because it's a blast template. And it's like, well, why not? Like, why can't I? And it's like, whereas before, it's like, no, they're never engaged. You can engage them to attack them, but they could just drive away. They could tank shock through the infantry and all that cool, fun stuff. And you could death or glory and all that things. I hated challenges because I was a Tyranid player and I never made sense that my guys would even accept a challenge or care about your challenge, and yet it could be worked against me. But whatever. Like I said, there's things I like and hate about each edition and every game. Like I play 5th edition D&D like crazy, and I can tell you a million things I hate about it, but I still love it and play it, right? So yeah, so going back to what my original point was in this massive tangent, and at Adepticon I had this revelation that I'm like, you know what, I think it's good that Games Workshop is mainstreaming their games, because the market's big enough now that you have all these other places, all these other companies that can make the games that satisfy those specific needs, those specific desires. And it creates its own subgenres almost. And so Games Workshop mainstreaming it pulls even more people into the hobby. So the way they market, the way they get people to buy tons of their stuff, that draws more money into the market and draws more people into the market, which then allows smaller companies to create their own games that Games Workshop would never care to create because it's just not worth it for them. Because, if we create a game using all this new miniature stuff that we've been doing, and we make like $10 million next year off of it, let's say, that would be fantastic success for us. For Games Workshop, it's like that would probably, they'd be like, yeah, cool. But, it wasn't worth all that time and effort. But for us, it's like, yeah, it's just a totally different scale, totally different beast. And so by them kind of growing the market, and then people want to experience other stuff. And so you kind of want that. So you have to kind of appreciate that Games Workshop did not invent miniature wargaming, but they have definitely popularized it. And they have definitely created the market, which allows everybody else. And and by the way, that is not leeching off of anybody else. This is what happens in every market. There are companies that create the market, and then there's other companies that step in and fulfill all sorts of other needs. So anybody says, yeah, you're just riding the coattails, it's like, well, and they wrote the coattails of all this and that and this other thing. It's like, who cares? It's like we're all just people trying to make a living and having fun in our hobbies and stuff. So that's kind of my new perception. It's like, hey, Games Workshop, you keep doing you. You keep power creeping your armies because it apparently is working, because tons of people are buying it. They're you can talk about their stocks all you like. We just had a pandemic. I have no idea exactly how it's all going. Even when you look at the numbers, it doesn't quite tell you the full story. All I know is that more people are buying, more people are getting into it, and it's going to keep cycling a lot of those people out to other stuff. And even if they keep playing 40k and Age of Sigmar and Lord of the Rings and all this, they'll also want to go out and try these other games. They'll go to Adepticon, or they'll be online, and a YouTuber or somebody will show them some other stuff too, and be like, that looks really neat. I really want to play that. And then those things can become popular too. So, but it requires the market to get to a certain size before the smaller ones can become self-sustainable as well. Whew, that was a long answer to your question there, Albin. Or Albin. So, Lanes of the Worth. Hey, Matt, much excited to see you guys getting guests and the like again. With you guys branching off to different games, have they affected the way you feel about 40k and AOS at all? I think I just basically covered that. And somebody asked me about AOS campaign. Spawn of Nerds, what do you believe about Warhammer legend rules? What do I believe? I believe they exist and that nobody around here uses them because they're usually pretty crap. I don't understand. I'm not quite sure if I understand your question. I already answered that question. Sanadio, where is the most reliable source to getting terrain for new beginners? Well, there's a lot of ways you can do that. Do you have a 3D printer? There's a crap ton that you can buy or download for free, not pirated, but actually people get it for free. Go to on Miniverse. Like Printable Scenery does a ton. There's all sorts of companies that do really good terrain. If you have a 3D printer, don't have a 3D printer. Well, it depends. Like you can make your own terrain. There's tons of tutorials online for making your own terrain out of styrofoam. That's what I did when we started, and it's not hard. Obviously, it's not going to look as fantastic as somebody who's been doing it for a long time, just like your miniatures won't look as fantastic as somebody who's got a lot more experience. So looking online for building your own, I guess that's there's no, it's a weird question. The most reliable source, like reliable, are you having problems like getting your terrain delivered to your house? Because that would be less reliable. So I don't know how to answer that question. But if you're just looking for what's a great place to start for beginners with terrain? Well, these neoprene mats from companies like Table War, Game Mad, and Urban Mats, all of them, they're awesome. They're not cheap, but neither is making a table. I think these things are like over $100, and then you got shipping and stuff, and they're big, so they're not cheap. But it's a whole table, and you can roll them up and store them so well. And a lot of companies offer double-sided ones too, so you can get more bang for your buck. And then there's lots of places that offer pre-painted scenery, like Game Mat offers a lot of pre-painted, so does Urban Mats. 3D printing is a great way to do it. Building your own. Like 3D printers are not super cheap. Like they are way cheaper than they used to be, but you're still going to spend hundreds of dollars on a decent one. But the terrain itself, once you're printing, it's just time. It takes a lot of time, but it's not expensive. So those are a few suggestions. But honestly, terrain it's all over the place. Just look for what you want, and that's within your price range. Build stuff if you need to save money, and away you go. Nova Speeds. Matthew, how can you sit at a time like this? Space dwarves are coming. The squats have returned. I know, I'm not super excited for it. I'm not like not excited for it. It's more just like I never wanted it, so I don't really care. I'm interested to see what they do with them though. Jacob Glad, I just built the Castellan Crow Grey Knights model. I was disappointed to find that he was a Primaris scale despite being a firstborn Marine. What are your thoughts about scale? Should 40k models be at a consistent scale? No. I don't think they need to worry about that. They're a heroic scale. They've never really been, things aren't to scale. I already talked about that a bit, like rhinos are not the right scale, land raiders are not the right scale. Like a land raider is almost the size of what a rhino should be. If you really think about packing all the Marines that can fit in there. And then a land raider would be much bigger, which would be really cool, but it wouldn't really work on the table. It'd look like a super heavy, which to be honest, that should be like the biggest thing on the table is a land raider. And it should be the size of a super heavy. That would be really cool. But scale, I don't know, people have their thoughts on it. I honestly think that when they created the new Space Marines, the Primaris Marines way back, that it was just them redoing the Space Marines, and then they're like, no, people won't buy it. They already own a ton of Space Marines, so let's make it a new thing. I actually honestly think that. And then it became its own thing, obviously, when you look at the later stuff. I could be wrong, it doesn't matter. But it's just like, yeah, you want things to be cooler and bigger and easier to paint and all that kind of stuff too. So I'm not too concerned that people are perfectly consistent with scale. Just make cool looking miniatures. Sadis72, when will we see the return of Archibald? He was amazing in a narrative campaign. Wouldn't mind seeing one just of him. The Rise of Archibald. As soon as they do that though, he's going to suck. You realize that, right? Archibald was from an Age of Sigmar narrative campaign, Conquest of Blood, that I did with Luca. Super fun campaign. You should check it out. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I do like bringing characters back to new campaigns, so maybe you'll see them. Jonathan DeLeo. Hi, Matt. I am really interested in your... Oh, Tyranid Codex. Cover that later. Okay, another question about Tyranids, another question about squats, another question about what narrative campaigns we're doing, another question about squats, Tyranids, triple herbals. How expensive do Games Workshop products need to be before you stop buying them entirely? That's a good question. I obviously have a different economy of scale running a business because like we buy a lot of miniatures and terrain and we pay to get them painted because we can't possibly keep up. So it's very different. I know that whenever I go to buy one personally, it's like, eesh, this is expensive. But people are still buying them. So obviously it hasn't hit that limit yet. And you can obviously, people will be like, well, they'll have less customers. It's like, well, right now, it doesn't seem to have kind of gone so high. And everything's expensive right now, so it's hard to say. Gwell or Gwell. Hi, Matt. I hope you are well and good. Thank you. Ooh, excuse me. Question. I've noticed the guys from Season of War have an interesting format where they do commentary over a live battle report going over the game as it's playing, kind of like sports commentary. It's an interesting way of doing it. Would that format work for you guys as well? Not all the time, of course, but maybe a game here and there. Oh, it could work. The problem is our live shows are kind of a secondary thing that we're doing right now. And because there's not a lot of people that have signed up for the memberships or who super chat during it. So we can't really afford to do more than just having even having the 3 people in there is already pretty expensive for us. So we'll see. Connor Thomas. Hey, Matt, did you ever think your channel would be as big as it is? No, of course not. Because when I started off, the biggest channel was Blue Table Painting and they had 2,000 subscribers. And I said, one day we'll be as big as them. 2,000 subscribers, which is wild. It's just crazy to think back to the early days of the internet. I remember when the first YouTuber hit 1 million subscribers. I think it was Freddy was the first one. The guy who just basically like sped up his voice and made it sound like a squirrel and had a bit of a narrative and it was really dumb. And welcome to the internet. And early YouTube. And so, yeah, I remember that. I remember thinking one day we'll have 2,000 subscribers. Like it seemed wild to think about having that many subscribers. And now obviously we're more than 400,000. And we're not even like technically the biggest channel anymore by, like you have ones with more subscribers and ones with more views. I realized that like battle report wise, we're pretty much one of the biggest, or at least up there. And so, and even when you consider everybody, we're still in like the top 10 for just views on any kind of subject related to wargaming. But no, it's crazy to think that because we're going to be hitting our 15th anniversary this year. So we're in our 15th year right now. And just to think that almost 15 years ago, so it'll be this summer, is when Dave and I decided to do this. I registered the domain name MiniWarGaming.com, I believe, in the June or July of 2007. And then we started working on it. We put out our first video the following January. We opened up our online store like a month or two before that. So there's not like a perfect date, which we just say September is our anniversary month because it kind of falls in between everything. And so like our first video though is a little over 14 years ago. And so that's a long time on the internet because the internet's still pretty new. Like YouTube is only a couple of years older than we are. Which is pretty crazy, pretty gnarly. Like back when we started, YouTube wasn't our only place that we were uploading videos. Like we were looked for any website that let you host videos, and we post them there as well. Like Daily Motion, do you remember that website? Blip.tv had insane advertising amounts for a while, like 20 times more than YouTube offered. And so we'd put it on Blip for the first 30 days, and then we'd put it on YouTube. And then we started the Vault, where we put stuff in the Vault like weeks ahead. So we didn't have exclusive Vault content. We just put content in the Vault first, because there wasn't this crazy release schedule where we had to worry about like making sure things went out at a certain time. So it's weird to think back as to how we used to operate and what our expectations were back then as well. Nemo No Name, Battlefleet Gothic. How do you feel about it now as a game? Also, have you looked into Frostgrave for running fantasy campaigns? Battlefleet Gothic is fine. I could use an update, like a true to the fans kind of update. Not like let's just make a new Battlefleet Gothic and just scrap what's old and make a new one. But like take the old one and be like, no, let's make a kind of like what they do with Blood Bowl. It's like, except Blood Bowl is really well done. Battlefleet Gothic is kind of wonky. The more we play it, the more we realize that it's just kind of wonky. So, I don't know, it needs an update of some sort. I don't know if I'll ever get one, though. The Frostgrave, I hear, is great, but I haven't really looked into it, no. And a question about power creep, which I've already talked about. Okay, so here's a question about squats, but maybe with a little more to it. Oops, I just refreshed and lost it. Here we are. Nope. Oh wow, there's a few more questions in here since I refreshed. Sean Jensen, if squats are returning, does that mean freebooters, Pharaoh Orcs, and Chaos Dwarves could be coming back also? Hey, who knows? Why not the Zotes as well? We already got them in the Blackstone Fortress, so let's make them come back. So one person asking me more about rules. I've already kind of talked about that. Another one about Tyranids, already talked about that. And squats, already talked about that. Yeah, okay, so we start, it's funny, after a while, if you answer enough questions, you start to get to the point where it's hard to find a new question because a lot of people want to hear the same thing, which is great. So it's not like I didn't answer their question, I just did it earlier when somebody else asked. Okay, it's been an hour, pretty much, and I'm out of questions. Thank you so much. Remember, Josh is next week, so you can leave a comment for him in the comments below, wherever the heck you're watching this, and we'll be sure to catch you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Happy wargaming.